Hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Tudo bem? Hello, konnichiwa. What it do? This is the third episode, so this is part 3 of the Stephen A. Smith versus LeBron James incident. And today we're actually going to get into Stephen A. Smith's response outside of ESPN. So this response here is going to be him talking after a few days of really, letting it simmer. And when I watch the video, the first thing that you'll realize, I'm not going to put every aspect of the video on here. That would take forever. This is already going to be fairly long. But the first thing he says is that he still understands LeBron James being a father. He has not lost that idea. And he gets that, and he sticks to what he said about that. But he's going to move into some other territory of some new revelations. Now, when you think about this, is going to sound different. What he's going to talk about now is going to sound a little bit different than what he said on ESPN. And to be 100% honest with you, I don't know if he could say some of this stuff on ESPN without that being a problem. So I understand why he's doing it on his own podcast. But I also think that as a person, when you have more time to think about something, you come up with more things that happened, right? If you were ever in a relationship, and you had you loved your girlfriend or whatever, and then she broke up with you and you really didn't know why, and you couldn't figure out what happened. Maybe you thought you guys were doing good. And then new revelations come out later, and, things start to click, start to make sense. You start questioning a lot of things. So I can understand how it changes and it becomes different. But some things to keep in mind from the last video is that, like I said, Stephen A. Smith understands where he's coming from as a father. I can even understand if it's about being a father. I get that. Stephen A. Smith, though, is, again, he's going to say some things that sound good. And I'd have to say, so far out of the series that we're doing here, the audio for this particular part of his pod has been pretty good. Like, he's been in this, you're going to see that he's pretty much hitting it right on the head. And like I said to you before, I think Stephen A. Smith, you have to take certain things that he says with a grain of salt, but he hit it right on the head with this. So let's check it out.
Was that had I had an opportunity to speak to LeBron, if the environment was conducive to that, not in the middle of a game, standing on the sideline, where my only recourse would be to make a scene by retaliating while a national audience was watching on TNT, sitting courtside just a few feet away from the Lakers bench. I was not going to do that, ladies and gentlemen. Forget the fact, or maybe we should or shouldn't forget the fact, that's up to you, but it was on the day where I was all over the news because news had percolated that I had reached a new contract extension with ESPN. It was that day. But that's neither here nor there.
So he starts off by saying that he didn't want to retaliate and cause a bigger issue. Excuse me. Which I agree with. I mean, to an extent, he took the high road. He took the high road in his ESPN interview as well. But he said these thoughts were kind of, going through his head. And I get that. I understand that. And I don't know if I would have been able to take the same high road. I definitely feel like I would have wanted to get in my 2 cents no matter what. Because if you approach me in public, then I feel like I need to say something to you in public. So let's continue.
And I was speaking about him. The incident that it clearly infuriated LeBron James so much. I wasn't talking about Bronny James. I was talking about you, LeBron James. And what threw me off was that LeBron James kept saying, "Stop, son. That's my effing son. That's my effing son. Stop, my son." And that bothered me all weekend long because I was trying to figure out When was I on his son? And that's why I decided to come back and revisit this today. Because something happened over the weekend that seemed fairly innocuous to you all, but not to me. So he was saying that what set him off is me saying, I'm pleading with you as a father. Ladies and gentlemen, he's alluding to what I said on January 29th, first on First Take, but now on here, on this show, the Stephen A. Smith Show, the same day.
Thus, Stephen A. Smith is alluding to the fact that something didn't sit well with him in that situation. He was saying that, he's taking a dump on his son. Stop messing with his son. Stop messing with his son. But Stephen A. is like, listen, hold on a second. His son, what? What? And he said something didn't seem right there. And he was marinating on it. And he never said anything about Bronny that he was aware of. Nothing that should have made LeBron James snap like this. And then he said it's the part where he was pleading with him as a father. But, as you're going to see, and Stephen A. Smith already said this, he was talking about LeBron as a father. He never actually said anything about Bronny. Now, he also alluded to the fact that on ESPN, he was pleading with them and everything like that, but it was a while ago. He said it was about a month ago from this point here. So let's continue to let Stephen A. Smith talk.
More than a month later, I stand by what I said, just like I said on television Friday. Why do I stand on what I said? Why do I stand by what I said? Because it's important that all of you know the back history as it pertains to me. Now we're going to get a little deep. When Bronny James was in high school, I never went to see him play on purpose. I hinted at potentially going over to Sierra Canyon and watching him play, but I never went. And when I spoke about it on the air, I said, the kid, from what I'm being told, has potential.
And so in this part right here, this is where Stephen A. Smith starts to get a little bit deeper. And he's a little bit fraudulent here. And I'll explain why he's a little bit fraudulent. First of all, LeBron shouldn't really be that upset based on what Stephen A. Smith is saying here. And I actually believe this. I do know this to be a fact. He basically stayed out of the way to not go out of his way to look at Bronny James and give his real opinion on him. He basically said, based on what they said, he has potential. And he left it at that. So he's not lying. He's not lying here. He just left it at what was said. And we know that LeBron James went out of his way to tell people how great his son was and how great he was better than NBA players. We remember that tweet. LeBron did that. Let's not forget. However, where Stephen A. Smith is a little bit fraudulent is that, again, he is a clout chaser. He's giving this family preferential treatment, which is why, in some ways, LeBron James has a lot of nerve. Because Stephen A. Smith isn't lying when he says, yeah, I could have did more here. I could have covered this and been on his behind. He's right. He was on Kwame Brown's behind way back in the day. If you don't remember that, Google it. Google Stephen A. Smith versus Kwame Brown, and you'll get a lot of feedback there. Dudes like Rasal Nesterovic, and most recently, dudes like Russell Westbrook. When Russell Westbrook was on the Lakers with LeBron James, who LeBron wanted on his team, instead of saying anything about what LeBron wasn't doing right or other people on the team, they decided to bash Russ. Why is that? Russ doesn't have the same level of clout and power. Now, Russ had power, but compared to LeBron, he doesn't, and he didn't. Because Russ doesn't move like that. Most players in the NBA today, they don't move like that. So they get overshadowed by LeBron James and Clutch Sports. So, again, Stephen A. Smith is right on the money with this. He's accurate. He's telling the truth. However, he's a fraud and a clout chaser because he should have did that. If LeBron's going to get up here and say all that stuff, he actually should have went to see Bronny play. Let's continue.
If I walk into an arena because I'm Stephen A. and to watch a basketball player that is the son of LeBron James, I know that from the moment I depart from there, everyone wants a critique about his game, and I did not want to do that. So I never went and watched him play in high school out of respect and deference to the James family. He goes to college. He suffers the heart ailment. I mean, my God, it scared the living hell out of us when we all heard the news that for a couple of seconds, he wasn't responsive. You're like, oh my God, we hope he's okay. And I said, to recover from that, you can't judge him on what you see his first year in college because he's not 100% healthy. That's not fair to him because he's LeBron James' son and you're inviting additional scrutiny. So I never went to USC. I'm out here in LA all the time. I'm here now. I've had opportunities to go to USC to watch Bronny James play, but I didn't think it would be fair to him and to LeBron James. So I never went. Then he's entering the draft instead of staying in school. And when he decided to enter the draft, and you had people speculating about what he wasn't, it was a colleague of mine by the name of Kendrick Perkins who went on national television as a former All-American with LeBron James in the 2003 All-American class, if I remember correctly, who said in front of the cameras on the record, we've never seen a 14-year-old be named a McDonald's All-American, bringing into question the legitimacy of Bronny James being an All-American. I didn't touch it.
That's right, Stephen A. You didn't touch it. And you failed us as a journalist because you should have touched it. Pause, no Diddy. And how has that worked out for you, man? He still came for you, right? So we're getting deeper into this. And again, Stephen A. Smith is right in everything that he's saying right now. He's being factual. But your actions have consequences. Everybody's actions have consequences. So he decided, out of the respect for the James family, to not go watch him play because if he walked in, he knew people would want him to critique him. You're a journalist. Out of respect for the LeBron James family, he's an athlete. He's an athlete that has put his family in the spotlight. Let me ask you a question. What's Steph Curry's son's name? Anybody know? I know he's light-skinned. He's got curly hair. Is his name Seth or something like that? Like his brother? I don't know. Somebody put that in the comments. What is Steph's son's name? I don't even know what his name is. Kawhi Leonard has kids. Anybody know who they are? I know Deuce Tatum. That's one kid that I know. Anybody else have kids that we don't know about that we should have a name of? They don't put their family in the spotlight like that. When you put your family in the spotlight, things are fair game. Especially when they're athletes. Athletes are critiqued. When you go play ball at LA Fitness, if somebody sucks, you say it. Yo, you're trash. One of the most hurtful things somebody could say to you on a basketball court is he's with us. You ever been shooting, having a bad off day, and somebody say, yo, it's all right, he's with us. Yo, like that junk hurts. Especially when you know you ain't making nothing. So then he speaks about the heart issue, and then he says he doesn't go see Bronny play at USC because the heart issue, he didn't feel like he was fully healthy. And no, we're not happy that Bronny had the heart issue. But he played a whole year there. A whole year. And people were making excuses then. And he still didn't go see him play. Why? You're a journalist. You can critique him as a basketball player. He's playing in college. If he's good enough to be there, then he's good enough to be critiqued, right? Given preferential treatment. This is why Stephen A. is a little bit of a fraud. But is he different than most other people? No. He's not the only person that was handling this situation with kid gloves. But again, look at the result of that anyway. You do something, you try to be nice, you try to take shortcuts, be nice to people, instead of doing your absolute job, kind of like most politicians do. They don't actually tell the truth. They rub the back of those that they're in with. We see it at work, you see it everywhere. Does that change the result? No, because people that are power hungry and low-key narcissistic, they're still going to treat you the way they want to treat everybody else. Narcissistic people that have big egos, and I'm sorry, LeBron has a huge ego. To me, it's a little bit narcissistic at times. He's not thinking about the good things that you did for him. It's about him, right? So he's worried about, in this moment, I don't like what's happening to me. They don't think about the good things that you did for them before. They don't think about when Stephen A decided to not actually do his job and be nice to Bronny, who's a professional athlete. When you're in college playing sports, you're dang near professional. Then he gets drafted instead of staying in school. Still didn't say anything about that. You're a journalist, bro. And again, he's factual. I understand what he's trying to say here. He said, I'm trying to be nice. I get it, Stephen A. But again, how did that work out for you? Should have just did your job. He was going to hate you either way. And we'll get to why he was going to hate him either way. We won't come to that conclusion in this video, but it's coming. Don't worry. And then he mentions Kendrick Perkins. Bronny James, I guess, was a McDonald's All-American at 14. McDonald's All-American is a big deal. All the greats that have ever played have been McDonald's All-Americans. A lot of these guys have been that. But you're not supposed to be that at 14. As far as I know, it's usually for top level elite high school players. And the top elite are usually, at least sophomores. You can't be a sophomore at 14, can you? In high school? Most of them are probably juniors and seniors, but at least I would say a sophomore. And Kendrick Perkins, LeBron's boy, said, a little fishy. Still, Stephen A didn't say anything. Meanwhile, people like myself, who I have not been sitting there burning up Bronny James at every step, because me personally, I don't think it's Bronny. I really believe it's his dad pushing all these things on him. However, as you see here, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And people say, oh, well, Bronny was a McDonald's All-American. Well, Kendrick Perkins, based on what Stephen A. Smith said, it's a little fishy. Is he really? Or was it his daddy? Is he really a college player? Or was it his daddy? Should he really be in the NBA? Or was it his daddy? And the people that are supposed to be reporting on this accurately, like Stephen A. Smith, they're trying to be buddy-buddy, clout chase, play politician. Right? Let's continue.
He gets drafted. But even while he got drafted, we were told Golden State might have been interested, Phoenix might have been interested, the Clippers were interested, Boston might have been interested, but were dissuaded from grabbing him because LeBron James and Rich Paul and Clutch Sports and those guys have made it very, very clear he's going to be a Laker. And they honored those wishes. We didn't say anything about that. Opening night, father and son, Ken Griffey Jr., Ken Griffey Sr. in attendance. Us who cover the league knows that people were going to question the merit, which means that the league would be reluctant to embrace this, that the Lakers, the most storied franchise in basketball annals outside of the Boston Celtics, would be reluctant to embrace it, but everybody did. And so did the media. So did I. I was in attendance, I was standing up, and I was clapping just like everybody else when he entered the game.
You sure were clapping. You know who wasn't clapping? Me. I wasn't clapping. Is it because I'm a hater? Is it because I just don't want to see people be successful? No, actually, it's because of what Stephen A. Smith just said. I question the merit. I'm a principled person. I live by standards and principles as much as I possibly can. Stephen A. Smith lives by the principle of money and clout. He's a go along to get along person, if you've ever heard that expression. These people go along so they can continue to get along. Or you could be someone like myself, who says something when something seems wrong. People don't love people like myself sometimes because people want to make things up. They want to live lies. They don't want to tell the truth. They want to let everything go. I wasn't built that way. I've never been built that way. I never will be built that way. Until I'm dead, I'm going to say something. So I wasn't clapping, right? So he gets to be a Laker because they basically tell everybody, don't you dare draft Bronny. Or he won't show up. He'll go to Europe or something like that or whatever. Whether or not that story is legitimate or not, I don't know and I don't care. It's weird. This whole situation, before it even got to Stephen A. Smith and versus LeBron, was weird. But what Stephen A. Smith is telling you, factually, is that he's seeing all these things just like we do, and he didn't say anything. All these people didn't say anything. But I was saying something, and some of you were saying something, because you knew it was nonsense. The Ken Griffey thing, if you haven't heard or seen that, Google it. Ken Griffey Jr., and I mentioned this in one of my other videos, Ken Griffey Jr. is one of the best baseball players of all time. His dad, Ken Griffey Sr., I believe his name is, was also a really good player. And at one point, they played on the Seattle Mariners, I believe, together before the dad retired. And it was beautiful. It was nice. But here's the thing. Ken Griffey is one of the best. Ken Griffey Jr. is one of the best ever. His dad didn't have to do anything to get him on that team or get him drafted. Now, let me take that back. I actually don't know the full story, so I don't know if his dad had any strings pulled or whatever to get him on that team. But the one thing I am trying to say is that his dad didn't have nothing to do with him actually getting drafted. That was going to happen. His son was elite, and his career showed how elite he was. So they did this little father-son moment, Bronny and LeBron, where they tried to act like the Griffeys, but it's absolutely not the same thing as the freaking Griffeys. Excuse me. The Griffeys were an elite sports family. LeBron is an elite basketball player. Is Bronny an elite basketball player? Does Bronny deserve to be in the NBA? Again, McDonald's All-American. We don't know if that's real. USC averaged like what, 4 or 5 points a game? Is he really a college player? I don't know. Still gets drafted to the NBA, but is he really an elite? Is he really going to be a great NBA player? Yeah. Could he be a pretty good NBA player over time? Maybe. It's possible. But who gets this many chances? Stephen A. Smith was on Kwame Brown's behind for dang near his whole career, and other players who were just as young as Bronny, who just didn't have a dad like LeBron. And he roasted him as much as he could. Probably cost the man some money. But he couldn't even say one honest thing about Bronny James until LeBron jumped on him like a rabid spider monkey with zero discipline in front of the whole world. And now all of a sudden, because he's offended, now he wants to come back and say all this stuff. So I applaud Stephen A. Smith for standing up for himself. I'll give him that. But again, you could have been honest about these things from day one. That's the issue I have with it personally. So he sees all these things like I saw all these things. And Stephen A. Smith is smart. Everybody sees all these things like I was watching all these things. But while I was getting criticized and disrespected by weirdos online and other places for telling the truth, or super zealous LeBron fans that don't want to listen to any level of reason, other people are watching this and going along with the circus. He said he was clapping. He's at the game clapping like a trained seal. He said the NBA was even weird, like what will be the merit of this? The Lakers, a storied franchise, the great Lakers, my team, going along with this nonsense. Clapping like a bunch of seals, all of them. Trained circus seals. Lunatic clowns. What is this? Go along to get along. Hopefully, y'all are not a part of that circus, but you know, it's your life. You do what you want. Again, I don't want you to hate anybody. Lebron, Stephen A. Smith, Bronny, especially Bronny, I think he's fairly innocent in this situation. To an extent. Excuse me. But yeah, I mean, this is he's there's a lot here. It's a lot deeper than rap, like I said before in a previous video, the video before this. It's deeper than rap. Okay? This is some A minor stuff. Some Kendrick Lamar, Drake, A minor stuff, guys. There's so many storylines within the story. So for this video, we're going to call it a wrap because it's going to get long. However, we did not yet finish Stephen A. explaining himself on his podcast. We will continue with that in part 4. Stick with me. There's a lot going on here. You really got to pay attention. You got to read in between the lines. It's deeper than rap. Okay? Thank you for listening to another episode of the J-Boy Sports Podcast. I appreciate you very much. Really appreciate the listening ear. Like, share, and subscribe. Much love.
I can tell that somehow you'll never get over leaving me. And when you feel like coming